Moumita, start your presentation.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm going to present a topic, the changing era of taxonomy. Before I start, we must know about what is taxonomy. Taxonomy is classifying animals. It's a science, it's a field of science that classifies animal and gives a systematic position in a phylogenetic tree. Change. According to the history of taxonomy, there are two major eras in the taxonomic origin. First is pre-Linnaean and next is post-Linnaean era. When the Swedish botanist Carl Linnaeus first founded the taxonomy, and before the time being, that was the pre-Linnaean era, when taxonomy was more about describing nature, observing nature, and less about science. Because people used to observe nature collecting specimens and used to observe them by its morphology only. That was the pre-Linnaean taxonomy. But in the post-Linnaean taxonomy, the things got changed. In the post-Linnaean taxonomy that started with the theory of Lamarckism, Jean-Baptiste de Lamarck first started this trend of taxonomy. And later on, Charles Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace tried to follow the theory and started to, towards a goal to prove the theory of evolution. Sometimes they work cumulatively and sometimes separately. They, they bring some expedition and went for some separate expedition like uh, Charles Darwin. In the right hand side photo, we can see that Charles Darwin made some photographs of barnacles when he was making some observation of Galapagos marine animals. And in the left hand side, we can see the Alfred Russel Wallace when spending most of his research time in the forest flora of Papua New Guinea, Australia. He made these pictures of birds of paradise, their courtship display, their morphology, their mating behavior, etc. Cumulatively, in the 1858, they published a literature that proves the theory of evolution and the natural selection. And this is the first draft, which theory of phylogenetic tree and the structure of phylogenetic tree. Change. In a book, a Spanish book named as Llegar un buen taxonomo, written by Sergio Salazar Vallejo, he mentioned about three main characters of taxonomic literature, that is, a pattern, characters, and classification. He mentioned that everything in this world has a distinct pattern, starting from the topology of the world and to the flora and fauna morphology. Everything follows a pattern, and a taxonomist has the duty to follow the pattern, to recognize the pattern, and name them to certain characters. When we got the several characters, we can classify them and say about their systematics. And later on, after Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace, several people from different parts of the country, several part of the world, started doing the same work, doing the morphological analysis and hand drawing pictures and publishing. This is how the taxonomy went through several years. As I must mention one thing, as I literally know anything about any field of taxonomy, but a little bit of polychaete taxonomy I know. So I'll restrict my word within polychaete taxonomy. So in the 1943, when Alan Hancock Pacific Expedition publication got published by Dr. Olga Hartmann, the polychaete taxonomy in the scientific literature was get immensely contributed. And afterwards, like Julian Day in 1967 and 1968, then Mariana Pettibone, then Powell, Powell of Fauna of India, Fauna of France. This all literature contributed in science, and they proved that polychaete taxonomy is very important and is a need of the hour to observe biodiversity or to monitor the marine biodiversity. This is how it spent a lot of time. But in the early of 1970, when this person, Christian Foucault, Christian Foucault was most beloved student of Olga Hartmann. He first arose a question. As we all know, that a very few people in our society have the guts to think out of the box, and whoever can do this, he or she flourishes. So same happened for the Christian Foucault. He first arose a question against all the thing, like everyone was when driven by the theory of cosmopolitan cosmopolitanism politics. So that time he only arose a question that no, politics cannot be cosmopolitan truly. They may have diverse identity, like they have diverse distribution throughout the world, but they can't be cosmopolitan truly. Based on this theory, a group of people, group of researchers started doing work, and several in this way, the tools and the biological equipment got advanced. This is how we got the first light microscopy and the ACM. When we look through the ACM, because this scanning electron microscopy give us a more detailed structure about any morphological thing. So afterwards, we get resolve this theory that yes, truly there is a misconception behind the cosmopolitanism. And in the 21st century, when Thomas Barthelmess first published the book Morphology, Molecules, Evolution, and Phylogeny of Polychaetes and Related Taxa, then for the first time, the cosmopolitanism, the concept of cosmopolitanism got breakthrough into several new concepts like species complex, cryptic species, sibling species, or pseudo sibling species. This is how we got to know that the former taxonomists like Olga Hartmann and all, Julian they made a little bit mistakes in few of their morphological observation. And by the time it was 21st century when we got the bold database, that was a revolution. Bold database was the barcoding database of any animals. So when we the taxonomists, the researchers started to do barcode and do the molecular taxonomy of annelids, then they got to know a true diversity, the hidden diversity behind the cosmopolitanism. Recently, in the 2020 May, Pat Hutchins, the most leading polychaete taxonomy in the world, published a literature called as Major Issue Facing Taxonomy, a Personal Perspective. She made it, it was mostly based on her own perspective on the taxonomic field. She mentioned two lines that draw my attention mostly. I want to dictate it as it is zoo taxa, for example, had an impact factor of 0.990 in 2018, whereas a journal like Ecology has an impact factor of 4.285 in 2019. This means when administrators rank staff in their departments, taxonomists will always be towards the bottom. That is the case, that is the scenario. Whenever we start doing research or start doing any work, we always think about our career, about the employment. If we can see, if we can justify the statistics of any field is getting decreased, the the impact factors are getting lowered, we can we it's quite obvious that people will lose interest from that field. So what are the remedies? In this paper, Hutchins have mentioned that the remedies could be like this, that the problem is government is not truly or directly benefited by the taxonomic work. So we have to link our taxonomic work somehow or somewhat in a way towards economical perspective, so that the taxonomy will not have to face fund crisis. Because in the most of the part of the world, people are there who want to work with this taxonomy but have fund fund crisis. So for these people, it's very advisable to do something innovative, like to do taxonomy with coupled with some anything else to that can help in economy. So if I recall from the first slide, we can see the changing era of taxonomy from the invention of from the foundation of taxonomy from Carl Linnaeus, then to Lamarck, then Alfred Russel Wallace Darwin, where taxonomy is still not a science but a work of naturalists. And then it started, got into entering into the scientific field with the help of Olga Hartmann and all. Then in the 21st century, we can see the fate of the taxonomy, and I must say is obviously a decaying science. And yes, it's truly a pity that it's getting decayed. So that was my perspective regarding changing era of taxonomy. Thank you.